And let me share my screen. Okay, just a quick overview what we have completed in previous class, where the specialized returns we did, descendant final return, estate, trust, and we did the retirement plan topic in the day 2. Okay, and today we are starting with the business entity, and we'll try to continue or we'll try to complete the next chapter, like 2 chapters we are focusing today. And again, it's a disclaimer, it's a very quick revision just for those people who have already completed the regular batch, or those who have already done one time reading and just doing a final revision for their exams. Okay, it's just a quick revision. So, types of business entity which you will see in US taxation, part 2 is all about the corporate taxation. So, you have to think from the employer's perspective, from the corporate perspective. So, what are the types of business entities? You will find sole proprietor, you will see partnership, corporation, qualifying qualified joint venture, or a limited liability company, or a trust, estate, or an S corporation. Okay, so we'll see quickly what are the criterias to incorporate this, or what will be their deadline to file the tax return, what are the conditions, because the membership criteria is important. Let's say in case of S corporation, the foreign person cannot be a member of that corporation, right? So let's see. If I talk about the sole proprietor, it's just a single owned business. It's an unincorporated business owned by one individual. Okay. And the owner, whoever is going to run the business, will be personally liable. That's a sole proprietor business. And only Schedule C will be used for reporting all the income and expenses of the sole proprietor. And business is not separated from the means anything comes up in, like anything, any huge major liability is there which the sole proprietor, the business is not able to repay, the sole proprietor will be wholly and solely responsible for all those liabilities. Okay, now let's say someone wants to form a business and where they want a limited liability, or they don't want to consider themselves as a fully responsible for anything. So either they can form as a C corporation, a corporation which will have a limited liability, or a limited liability company, or a partnership. But in partnership we will see there are different types of partners. General partner will be having like personal responsibility as well for the liabilities. Okay, so we see that what are the two different categories. Partnership is, everyone knows, like at least two people should be there to form a partnership. So two or more partners who join and carry a business is called as a partnership. So one can be a general partner who will be called as personally liable for the debt, all the debt, all the liabilities. The partners can be in the form of individuals, or even any other corporation can be a partner in the partnership firm, or any trust can be a partner, or an estate or other partnership firm can be a partner in the partnership firm. This partnership firm is like, when you form a partnership firm, it's always a pass through entity. Means the 1065 return which you're going to file, it's just an informational return. You don't have to pay the taxes right now. It will be flow through a different K1s. Whoever are the partners, they will receive a K1, and that K1 will be shown on there, that will be reported on their individual 1040 return. Okay, so that we will see individually on the respective chapters. In partnership chapter, C corp, S corp, those chapters we are going to revise again. So we'll see that partners are who, like individual, corporation, trust, estate, or other partnership firm can be a partner. Taxes are not paid, as I mentioned, it's a pass through entity, so partnership firm doesn't pay any taxes, but it will be passed through to the partners. And partnership reports income and expenses on the annual information return, that is 1065. So if I talk about a 1065 or a S corporation, for both type of return, when they have to give a K1, when they have to generate a K1 and provide it to their individual partners or the shareholders, they have to file, they have to report all their income till 15th of March. So within that 1 month, the 1040 deadline can be fulfilled, that is 15th. If you can remember, any pass through entity is going to have a deadline of 15th March for filing the tax return. Okay. Then let's look at the corporation, a person or a group incorporated by a charter for Secretary of State. So please understand one thing: when your LLC, when your company is formed, sorry, so it is formed initially as a LLC. Okay. Now this LLC is only recognized at a state level. To recognize yourself at a federal level, to recognize yourself at a federal level, you should either select as a C corp or as a S corp. By default election, they will do a by default election if you don't select any of this corporation. If there are less than one, like less than two members, means let's say only one person is there, it's called as a disregarded entity, sole proprietor. If there are two or more owners or members, they will by default consider it as a partnership. Okay. So please remember, like, the LLC is formed under the state law by filing the article of organization. But C corporation, so if you want to convert your LLC either into C corp or S corp for federal filing purpose, you have to fill out a form 8832 for C corp, and for S corp it is 2553, and just report it to the respective state authority as well, and the federal authority that are electing to consider yourself as a S corp or C corp. Okay. So LLC members are not personally liable. If you form a LLC, it's like they are not going to be personally liable. For federal income tax purpose, single member LLC will be considered as a disregarded or sole proprietor unless you elect yourself as a S corp or a C corp. Okay. And multi-member LLC by default election is what? Partnership, unless you elect as a C corp or S corp. Okay. Next is, okay, so what's the difference between C corporation and S corporation? Mainly, the S corporation is for this, it's a small entity. It has less than 100, up to maximum 100 members. As soon as your members exceed 100, your S corp election will get revoked. Okay. So, see, here, a corp or a group incorporated by the charter from Secretary of State is considered as a C corp, and they will be paying the, it's not not a pass through entity. 21% tax they have to pay, and then again the shareholder will be paying the tax on the dividend. So let's say from C corporation, whatever distribution they are going to receive, it's in the form of the dividend, and the shareholder will have to show that dividend, disclose that dividend income on the 1040 return. So again they will file the, again they pay the taxes on the dividend, they file the return. Okay. S corp is a pass-through entity, and yes, you are going to file a 1120S. It has simple criteria. There has to be less than 100 members. No foreign person can be a member of S corp. Next thing is qualified joint venture, unincorporated business jointly owned by the married couple. So qualifying joint venture is like two people are running the, it's kind of small family business they are running, and those two people are married, they are filing as a joint return. So simply, you don't have to register your business anywhere, but you can consider, even if two people are running the business, right, you can consider yourself still as a Schedule C business. Because ideal situation is what, like if two or more members are there, it's called as a partnership. Instead of filing as a 1065 partnership return, you can still show the whole, you can disclose your all your profits of your business on your 1040 return. The condition, both should be filing a joint return as a MFJ filer. Okay. Now, QJV, only the members are married couple and by default treated as a partnership for federal tax purpose. Ideally, it's a partnership, but if both spouse are agreeing and they are electing for not treating themselves as a partnership, then they can file it on the Schedule C of the 1040 return. Okay. The condition is both should be married, plus they should file a MFG return. Both should materially participate. This is the important condition, that they should have a material participation. It's not like they are not doing any active conduct of business, or the taxpayer and spouse both should be working in the business, and it has been co-owned by both the taxpayer and the spouse. Okay. And trust and estate, just on the first day we completed the trust and estate topic. Trust can be created while alive or upon death, depends. It's an inter vivos trust or a testamentary trust, we did yesterday only. Same way in estate, when a person dies, on the date of death, from that date you need to check next 9 month you have to file the estate return. So on death of the individual, it's a separate legal entity which the executor is going to form. They will take a EIN number and they'll file the return for the estate. Okay. Next is LLC tax treatment. They have alternate election or a default election. Default election we already saw. If LLC is going to have more than two members, the default election is partnership. If LLC members is less than two, it's just one member, it will be always considered as a disregarded or a sole proprietor. What's the alternate election? You can do a checkbox regulation election. That's under IRC section 7705, means simply you have to file either 8832 form or 2553 form. Okay, this for C Corp and this for S Corp. So till what date you can do this election? It should be done within 75 days, beginning from the beginning of the tax year. Okay. So let's say I form some business in 2025, somewhere in July. Okay. So for this, what's the tax year? 2025. From the beginning of the tax year up to 75 days from the beginning of the tax year, means Jan 2025 till next 75 days, I can do the election either at the early stage, or once the business is formed, after that, till the date of filing my return, I can do a late election by giving a specific reason. You have to put it in the detail in the tax return. Okay. And once you are electing either as a C Corp or S Corp, you should not change it within 60 months. If you want to change it, you should have a valid reason for changing. Either, let's say, your S Corp election has been revoked, that's fine, then you can continue your business back to C Corporation. Okay. But again and again, like every year, if you're changing from C Corp to S Corp, S Corp to C Corp, that's not allowed. You should have a valid reason for that. So they have kept a lock-in period of 60 months. Okay, now let's talk about the types of employees. When you are running a business from a C corporation, S corporation, or even a partnership, from all the angles, being an employer, you should know what specific tax you should deduct. Okay, so there are different categories of employees to whom different category of tax will be applicable, specifically for payroll taxes I'm talking about. So let's say I'm hiring some independent contractor. I don't have to deduct the payroll taxes for that independent contractor, because independent contractor is not an employee, and they will be subject to self employment taxes. They will pay their own taxes, right? On their schedule C, they will pay their own self employment taxes. So they offer services to general public, either in the trade or business. And the person for whom the services are performed, means, let's say I have hired some independent contractor, and I have the rights to control only the results of the work. I don't care how the work is done, I just want the results, how the results are going to impact. I can accept the work or reject the work. Okay. But I'm not controlling the way of doing the work. That person is called as an independent contractor. Okay. Next is common law employee. Employee of a person. Now this is like a normal salaried employee that we can consider. So employee of a person, the person who is considered as providing the services to the employer, and that person has the rights to control what will be done and how it will be done. So just think, like, if you're an employee and just like uh, you know your your company, your manager or someone is going to give you the guidance how the work needs to be done, what should be the quality. So everything they are going to train you. The that kind of relation is called as a common law employee. Okay, and next is employee can either be a full time or part time. Officer does not receive any pay and does not provide the services, or provides a very minor services, is not considered as an employee. Officer means they are considered as a managing person in the business, or they are kind of owners of the business, and they are just receiving a small or minimal pay for involving themselves in the business, or they're just receiving some distributions for generating revenues. So that person is not your common law employee. Okay. Employer can withheld, whoever is the employer, they have to withheld or pay federal income tax, social security and Medicare taxes. Okay. So in case of independent contractor, you are not going to withheld any Medicare, social security. Person is a contractor, you just need to do a federal income tax withholding, that's it. You don't have to do any social security, Medicare withholding. It is done in the common law employee. Now, next is statutory employee. Statutory employee means what? Let's say I am going to give you a W 2, but I'm not going to deduct your Medicare and Social Security. So there will be a box number 13 on your W 2, which I need to elect. So either the person is not a common law employee. So there are four conditions that will consider as a statutory employee. Let's say it's a driver who distributes beverages. So let's say DoorDash driver is there, Uber driver is there. They also drive. They are also going to distribute the beverages. So whoever is the um the company, let's say DoorDash or anyone, they are going to issue them the W-2. But they are not considered as a common law employee, because they are going to use their own resources. They're going to use their own vehicle, right, to deliver the goods or some to deliver the food or beverage. So in this situation, the one of the condition is not getting fulfilled, that is, yes, they has the right to control what will be done and how it will be done, because the Uber driver and those people, they know which address to what address they will be delivering, and how it will be done, it's the discretion of that Uber driver. Okay. So you can just remember that one example. That person is called as a statutory employee. So even he will receive a W-2, but there won't be a Medicare, Social Security. He have to report it under his Schedule C. To report it separately on Schedule C, first he need to report on 1040 return as a W-2 with the box number 13 as a check mark box. Okay. Then second one is full-time life insurance sales agent. So if anyone who is going to sell the insurance policy, again, for all the four examples, you will see this thing is not getting fulfilled. So let's say any agent is there who is working for a insurance agency, but they are just a salesperson. So they are not going to work according to the insurance company. Their main goal is to bring the customers, right? So they are going to work according to their own flexibility, and there will be no control rights of the employer in the situation of the uh, life insurance sales agent. Okay. Next is individual who work from home on material provided by employer, plus work specifications are also provided. Okay. So anyone who is working from home on any specific material which is given by the employer. Okay. So that person will be considered as a statutory employee. Okay. Last one is full-time traveling city salesperson. Anyone who is selling some goods by you know um, going at different locations, and they are just selling it. This happened in some old days, that people used to give us some demo of, let's say, vacuum cleaner or something, some equipment or some goods or services which they are selling, by giving us the demo and then we are purchasing it. That kind of person is also considered as a statutory employee. Just remember, this condition is important to differentiate between these two. Okay, now statutory employee is clear, it will have only four type of employees. Now what is the condition? Withholding of social security and medicare taxes will be done if all these four conditions are met. What are these conditions? All services are performed personally, okay, and they do not have substantial investment. So let's say it's an Uber driver. Okay, I'll take one example. If it's an Uber driver and all services are performed personally by the Uber driver, they are not going to assign that work to someone else. Okay, let's say Mr. X has been registered for that Uber activity. Mr. X is only going to perform the whole services. Second is, they do not have substantial investment in the services performed. So Uber driver has a substantial investment, right? They have their own car. But let's take an example. This individual who is working from home, and whatever material equipment is given by the employer, even if it's some, trading or business or anything it can be, so they do not have, whoever is working should not have a substantial investment in the services performed. And services should be performed on the continuous basis for the same employer. They should not be working for two three different employers. Okay, so I'll give one example. I've seen that uh, there are two three different agencies who provide the cabs, right? Uber, and there's one more is Lyft. Over here I've seen it's a LFYT Lyft. So some drivers have active are active, and they're working with both the different employers. So anyways, the Uber drivers are not fulfilling the first condition at all. Sorry, second conditions. They have the substantial investment, they are using their own car, that's the main investment to provide the services, right? So they, for those people, they might not deduct social security and medicare. But if any of this four employee, any of this remaining three people are there, and they fulfill all this three conditions, then they will have to pay medicare and social security. Okay, employee plus employer portion, whatever is our regular deduction. Got it? Next is statutory non-employee. Okay, so there will be now a confusion between these two. Anyone who is self-employed for federal tax law purpose. So let's say someone is a direct seller or a licensed real estate agent, right? And they are going to sell their own goods or services. So it's a direct seller or a licensed real estate agent. They are called as a statutory non-employee. Okay, and whatever payments they are going to receive, it's in the form of the sales or other outputs rather than the number of hours worked. It's not based on the number of hours worked, it's based on the sales or other output. Okay, next is services are performed under written contract that provides they will not be treated as an employee for the federal tax purpose. So let's say they are just giving a direct seller, so let's say they are a real estate agent, and they are providing the services to one of the entity for five to 6 months. They have contracted with that entity, but they are also providing the same services to other entities. Okay, and when they are providing the services to the first entity, they are doing an agreement and contract, and in that agreement it should be clearly mentioned that they will not be considered as an employee for the federal tax purpose. Okay, I know there will be now again a confusion between independent contractor and the statutory non-employee. So, independent contractor is someone who is providing the services and the results are controlled. This line you have to remember mainly to differentiate it. Results are only controlled by the person who has hired them. But in statutory non-employee, the results are not controlled. Services are performed under a written contract. That's it. Okay, and companion sitters, this is an example, who are not the employee of the companion sitting placement services. For example, company A has hired a whole organization. It's they are mainly into the placement services, and they are going to interview the new candidates. They are going to go through, like, they are going to complete the onboarding procedure and all for on behalf of the AN company. Okay, so those component sitters are not the employees of the company. They are not even the independent contractors. They are statutory non-employees. Okay, so these are the types of employees which we have seen. Now, what kind of reporting, tax withholding and reporting you should remember? Yeah. So one is self-employment taxes. Then we'll see the payroll taxes. And then we'll see the estimated taxes which are required for the corporates, and how the deposit of the taxes, employment taxes, is done. That is electronic deposit. Okay, so let's read one by one. First is self-employment taxes. When anyone who is running their own business, Schedule C, right? They have to pay the self-employment taxes, because ideally they are not employed under any employer, and that's the reason why IRS will ask them that you are generating certain revenue, you should pay something in the form of taxes, but it the percentage will be exactly the same as a payroll taxes. Okay, so see, self employment taxes is a social security and Medicare that's primarily for the individual who work for themselves. That's a combination of Medicare plus social security. The income earned as an employee or as a notary is not subject to Self Employment Compensation Act tax. Okay, so it's just like simple thing that the rate of tax is same as that of Social Security and Medicare tax rates. Okay, it's 12.4 plus 2.9. That's the total 100% tax. Out of that, now everyone argued like why we should pay 100%, because if we would have employed, we would have paid only 50% of this taxes, because 50% is paid by employee, 50% is paid by employer. So what IRS says that okay, that's fine. First, this is your SE tax for calculation purpose you should use this. Out of that you will get a deduction of, as an adjustment of 50% of SE taxes, whatever you are liable to pay. Okay, so yes, so social security coverage provides the taxpayer with the retirement benefit. So in near future, whenever you're going to retire, they like the government start paying you certain amount. From where does they bring this fund? That is your social security taxes which you have paid in the prior years while you were employed. Okay, if self-employment taxes, they the rate is like 15.3. The combination of this two is 15.3. And yes, this is just a calculation, and no need to remember the calculation, no need to remember the rates as well. Just understand the concept over here. So if you would have been on the payroll, your employer might have deducted Medicare or Social Security, but the same thing, you are right now not employed, but you are running your own business. So same percentage, 15.3% should be applied as a SE taxes, right? And 50% portion, the employee's portion, is allowed as a adjustment on your tax return, 50%. Those who are going to file a Schedule C on the 1040, this 50% is allowed on 1040 return. Okay, obviously if you're a sole proprietor, you might be filing your 1040 return. But let's say you are a S corporation and only single owner is there. So what S corp does, S corp is going to pass through all the income to the owner, the shareholder. So when they receive a K1 from the S corporation, on that K1 also they have to pay the self-employment taxes, single owner shareholder. Okay. Okay. Next is yeah, this is just a calculation part which you can just go through. The limits are there, and that's not that necessary to remember. Uh, Okay, just fine. This is an example. Next are payroll taxes. So in payroll taxes, you have three different taxes: federal income tax, federal insurance contribution act, and federal unemployment tax. So federal income tax is just your normal taxes, which yes, yeah. So it's just your normal taxes which has been withheld on your gross W2 wages. Okay, so employer is going to withhold the federal income tax from the wages, and form W4 will be used to figure out how much percentage we are going to deduct federal income tax. Okay, Now, next is FICA. FICA is Federal Insurance Contribution Act, and according to that, we have to deduct Medicare and Social Security taxes for employee portion plus employer's portion. You have to deposit it to the government. Okay, so Social Security plus Medicare taxes is the part of the FICA. The rate of tax is the same, like 12.4, but you have to divide it by 2 because 50% for employee, 50% for employer. Same way for the Medicare. Okay. Next is, yes, when you have to report. So this payroll taxes needs to be filed with the government, with the state government, with the federal government by on quarterly basis 941 and annual basis 940. And if it's a small employer, let's an agriculture business, then use 944. It's a very small business, only 2 3 employees are there then. Okay, so yeah, some shortcuts like I usually use FIT, FICA, FUTA, SUTA. This words, so it's just terminologies which has been given over here. Next is FUTA. FUTA is federal unemployment. So it's paid 100% by the employer. So let's say if I'm hiring someone, let's say I'm hiring Mr. X, someone there in the market is still unemployed, right? So they might be receiving unemployment benefits from the government. From where does government collects this unemployment benefit fund? They use the FUTA taxes. Okay, so you have hired Mr. A, but Mr. B is unemployed. So for that person, you should pay the federal unemployment. Okay, so there is one question. Can you please explain the topic of taxpayer with both wage and self-employment income point? Okay, I'll explain that. Wait, let me complete the FOTA thing and then I'll take that example. So, what will happen is that federal unemployment is 100% paid by the employer. Whatever wage I'm going to pay to my employees, I have to pay 0.6%, 0.06% as a federal unemployment taxes. Okay, and yes, you have to report it. You just have to file the 940 return for reporting your federal sorry, you have to just report it. You're not paying the tax through 940. 941 is just the reporting requirement. Actually, you pay the taxes every month as and when the payroll is run. Okay, now let's take one example. Let's say Mr. A is earning a wages. Also, he's having a schedule C. Let's say he's earning a wages of 60,000. He's also having a schedule C business of 50,000. Okay, so on schedule C, sorry, on wages, the $60,000 wages, his employer might have already deducted Medicare and Social Security. You don't have to again pay the Social Security, Medicare on your 1040 return. Okay, it's already deducted. You don't get any benefit also right now because it will be used in future. In future, when you start receiving your Social Security benefits, at that time it is used. But right now, when your employer deposits Medicare, Social Security, you don't have to consider it as any, like, it's not a credit, it's not allowed anywhere as a deduction. But being a schedule C, full 50,000 which you are earning, no one is deducting taxes on your behalf, right? So what you have to do is you have to deposit a self-employment taxes which is equal to 12.4%. On that you will claim a self-employment tax as an adjustment, 50% of this. Okay, got it? I think, I hope this is clear. This just a simple difference. If it's still not clear, just let me know on the chat box. Okay, employer might have already deducted it, so no need to worry about it. If no one has deducted your payroll taxes, no one has deducted your self-employment taxes, then you have to pay it along with your 1040 return and you can take the 50% as a deduction. Okay, that's the payroll taxes. Then we have the taxes for the family members as a employee. So let's say there is just a small family business, like let's say it's a qualified joint venture, and they have hired their child also to work with them. So child is being employed by the parents, and if the child's age is less than 18, no withholding should be done of the payroll. Means no need to pay any social security or Medicare if the age is less than 18. Like you're not hiring any illegal people. Like you cannot say like it's the age is less than 18, how we are hiring them. It's just family business. If it's a family business, you can hire your own child for your family business. Okay. So yes, there will no withholding for Medicare and Social Security if the age is less than 18. Federal income tax will be applicable. So I hope you understand the difference between these three. Medicare and Social Security is FICA. So FICA is not applicable if the age is less than 18, but federal income tax is applicable. Federal income tax is just like TDS in India, like based on your estimated income, like in which slab rate you are going to fall based on your filing status. So that all information you have to give it to your employer on your W-4 form. So there's one question: can you give an example scenario of FUTA? Federal unemployment is just like a normal tax which has been paid by the employer on behalf of employee. Let's say, let's take the same example. This Mr. A is receiving $60,000 as a salary. Okay, let's calculate how much. Let's say this is the gross pay. On this, the employees tax, employer will have to pay two taxes. One is FUTA and one is FICA. When I use the word FICA, just understand it's Medicare plus Social Security. So on this 60,000, how much will be your FICA? It will be, let me just do a calculation. So 15.3 divided by 2, it will be 7.65. So 60,000 into 7.65%, that will be 4590, 4590. Yes, sorry. 4590 again, and this will be into 0.06, that will be just 36. Okay, so yes, when the employee is going to receive a salary, how much net he will receive? 60,000 minus 4590, that's it. Okay, he is going to receive 60,000 minus his share will get reduced, not the employer's share. Employer, this two amounts is going to pay out of his pocket. So minus 4590, that will be 55,410. This will be considered as the net earnings of the taxpayer. So when the taxpayer is going to, the employee is going to file their 1040 return W2, the gross wages will show as a 60,000, right? On the box 2, there will be a federal income tax withholding that will also be deducted from this. Let's say the federal income tax withholding is 2,000, so he is going to receive a net amount of 53,410. Okay, I hope now it's clear. For employer, when, because it's a part two businesses, you have to think employer is going to expense how much? Only this two amounts. This employer is not eligible to expense this amount because this amount is deducted straight away from the salary of the employee, right? And okay, let me give you an example. When you look at the profit and loss of the employer, what all expenses will be allowed? Wages will be allowed, and always the gross wages will be allowed. Okay, what other will be allowed? The FICA will be allowed. FUTA 36, FICA 4590. So this will be his total allowable expense in the tax return, whatever it's C corp, S corp, or partnership. Okay, so this is how the payroll tax work. Next is, let's say you're hired, you have hired anyone, like any children on your, to work with you on your family business. The age limit is important. If the age is less than 18, then it's fine, no need to no need to deduct the FICA, but federal income tax is always applicable. It's just like your reverse calculation. They will estimate what will be your total earnings during the whole year, and they will check what marginal rate will apply according to your future earnings. Like during that whole year, whatever slab rates will apply, accordingly, they will reduce a certain percentage from each paycheck in the form of federal income tax. Okay. But if the age is more than 18, but up to 21, again, no federal income tax and no FUTA will be applicable. No Social Security Medicare will be applicable. Okay. So this is it. Now there's one more thing. Parent is employed by the child. Now let's say there's a vice versa scenario. The child is running their own business and they have hired their parents to just look over the business. So federal income tax and FICA is always applicable, but federal unemployment taxes is not applicable when you have hired your family member. Okay. Here there is one exception. uh, the simple thing is, whatever whoever you are going to hire, the child should be hired in the business and that business should be run by both the parents. The exception is corporation. Even if controlled by the child's parent, then also it's fine. But if it's a partnership, if each partner is not a parent of a child, then they are not going to exempt any of the taxes. So everything will apply: federal income tax, Medicare, Social Security, FUTA, everything will apply. Even in case of estate, even if estate of a deceased parent have hired the child to take care of, they have hired the child to take care of the execution of the estate. So in that case also it's allowed to not pay. Like they can skip, sorry, they can skip the federal income tax, FUTA, SUTA, and Medicare, Social Security. So this is the condition. And okay, let's see this one spouse employed by another. It can happen like one spouse, taxpayer is hiring the spouse to work on some day-to-day activities of his business. So federal income tax, FICA is applicable, but FUTA is not applicable. These two are the same condition. One exception is in case of corporation. If the taxpayer is running a C corp, even if controlled by the individual spouse, then also they have to follow the same rule. Partnership, even if individual spouse is a partner, then also it's fine, they have to follow the same rule. FICA and federal income tax is applicable, FUTA is not applicable. Okay. So yes, next is estimated taxes. Estimated taxes, in this, when we'll do the part one, estimated taxes, you will see the calculation for the sole proprietor. Same in the case of the partners and the S corp, because partnership and S corporation, those are the pass through entity, and whatever income they are going to generate, they are going to pass through to their partners and S corp, and the partners and S corp are going to sorry, and the individual shareholders or individual partner, they're when they're going to file the 1040 return, they have to do the estimated tax calculation. So when the owners of such business expects to owe of up to $1,000 or more, the owners, they are talking about the sole proprietor, the partners, the shareholders. If they're going to own more than $1,000, this individuals generally makes, those individuals will have to make an estimated tax payment, and they have to file in their individual 1040 return, 1040 ES. Now what about corporations, C corporation? Because we have seen that in the types of entity topic, C corporation is what? It's a pass through entity. So they need to pay estimated taxes in advance before the filing of the return if they are expected to owe more than $500. Okay. So when they should do an estimated tax deposit, they should do it on the quarterly basis. So from Jan to March, that quarter, estimated taxes should be paid in the month of April, then June, then September, and last is December. If this would have been a 1040 estimated tax payments, what it will be? It will be the same, like the 4th means 15th April, then 15th June, then 15th September, and instead of December, they give you the option to pay it on 15th April. Okay, but there are 4 quarters. There will be, I think, 15th March or something there. But yes, we'll see that. Don't worry. On 1040 return, it's okay. It's given here. See, guys. You can see here. It's January. Yes, on January. So 15th day of April, June, September, and January. Okay, so let's say 2025, when you're filing the tax returns, when your estimated tax payment should have been done in 2024, it should have already been done. You have to start from the first month. So Jan 24, then it will be April 24, then June 24, like it's 15th, and 15th September 24. Okay, sorry. So this needs to be done based on quarterly basis ideally. Just the main one difference is in corporation, the last payment should be done till last month itself. But over here you can make the payment in first month of the, sorry, on 15th April, or at the time of filing the tax return. So this should be 15th April 2025. So wait, this should be, okay. Sorry for the confusion, guys. So it should be 15th April 2025, and then the previous payment should be 15th Jan 25. Previous payment should be 15th September 2025. Previous payment should be 15th June 2025. Okay, because if we are going to pay on 15th April 2024, it's the tax return when you are filing for 2023, it's for that year. So in tax return you have the option to select for which year you are paying. Are you paying for 23, or is it an advance estimated taxes which you are paying for the next year? Okay, but yes, in individual tax return, like on 1040 topic, we are going to do a calculation as well. How much penalty you have to pay if you paid it in a delayed manner, or how much tax liability you should deposit, looking at your revenues, looking at your federal income taxes, or any advanced taxes which are already withheld by the employer. Over and above that, you have to pay the estimated taxes. Okay. Next is, this payment needs to be done electronically. Whatever you are going to deduct from the employee's salary, plus whatever is your portion. Being an employee, you are also going to put some money for payroll taxes. So both of these things should be paid through mobile, through sorry, electronic deposit. And if you do not pay through electronic deposit, there will be a penalty, 50,000 or less. And weekly deposit schedule is also there, so you can either go for monthly or weekly, depending on your payroll size, how many employees are there. Depending on that, you can either elect to do a direct deposit on monthly basis or a semi weekly deposit schedule. Okay, so there is one question while solving MCQs. There were so many questions regarding this date. Question that if some corporation is not started with Jan, and instead the taxpayer begins with some other month instead of Jan, means the, like, if it's using fiscal year, then in such cases what will be the dates of estimated tax? Good question. The date on which they have formed, from that date you have to calculate in which quarter they are forming the business. Let's say they are forming the business in the in June. So June payment will come. What's the next quarter falling after June? 15 September you have to start with the payment. It will not be 4 payments in that situation if you start your business in middle of the year. Okay, it will be just 1, 2, and 3 payments maybe. Okay, or let's say you're starting somewhere here, so it will be 1, 2, and 3 payments. depending when you're starting your business, when you're incorporating your business, whatever is the next recent quarter, you can pay at that time. But in practical life, in first or second year, you might not even liable to pay the estimated taxes. There are certain condition. What's the condition is, if your tax liability is at least $500. So majorly, like some businesses in first year, they might not make huge profits, so ideally it will start from the second or third year only. Okay. Or even if they are going to have a fiscal year, let's say if it's not a calendar year, every year, if they are going to follow a fiscal year, then you need to use the month. See, can you see your month? Whatever is your start year, this calculation we have assumed Jan to December. Let's say the fiscal year is March to let's say it's April to March. Okay, so your business is starting first year of your financial year is April. So from here you have to check fourth month, when the fourth month is coming. Okay, so that will be August. Your first estimated payment should be 15th August. Then again you have to check what, which is the sixth month, sorry, which is the sixth month from here. Okay, from here, which is the ninth month, from here, which is the 12th month. Like this you have to do the calculation if they are using a fiscal year. Okay, so use the, read the words properly. It's saying fourth or sixth or ninth month of the corporate tax year. It can be fiscal or it can be calendar year. Okay, next is trust fund recovery. Just give me a minute. Okay. So trust fund recovery is something we call as, like, let's say employer has deposited em- all the payroll taxes, then it's fine. But till the time they have deducted, for example, there is a bi-weekly payroll, like twice a month they are going to pay to their employees. So what will happen, if first week they have paid to the employees, they might have deducted the social security medicare taxes, that $4590 they might have deducted, but the deposit can be done at the end of the month. So till the time they are holding that fund, they are called as a trust fund for holding that money. And if they are delaying in deposit or they are not depositing it, then we are going to charge a recovery penalty for that. So the person responsible for withholding, accounting for, or depositing, paying specified taxes, including NRA withholding or any employment taxes, and if they fail to do so, if they have deducted it but they have not deposited it on time, then they will be liable for a penalty which will be equal to full amount of unpaid trust fund taxes plus any interest. Okay, a responsible person for this purpose can be a officer, those who are managing the whole business, or it can be anyone who is responsible for depositing the money. They will be responsible for this penalty. And if it's a willful attempt to not pay this taxes, in this case it means like voluntarily they are not paying it and it's intentional, then they will be responsible for the penalty or the criminal penalties as well. Okay, so next is, yes, required form is W4 form. It's necessary to disclose all your future income. So because according to that, they are going to charge the federal income tax. They are going to deduct the federal income tax. How much percentage they should deduct. That's why every employee is going to deposit this form to the employer. Okay, just declaring what other incomes and what other deductions, credits they are going to claim. Form I-9 is also being deposited by employee to the employer. So employer must verify that each employee is legally eligible to work in US. So it can be like I-9 is just a verification f- criteria. Like even if a person is a non-resident and if they've hired some non-resident, they will have to fill the I-9 form. Okay, an employer will have to collect I-9 and W-4 form from the employees during the hire of that particular employees, and W-4 is updated every year. Let's say next year your filing status changes, you have to declare your filing status, you have to declare your deductions, credits on your W9 form, W4 form. Okay. All right, next is, yes, I think, yes, these are some information returns. You don't have to mug up the form numbers, but just go through it once, like for wages, for gambling winnings. This, being an employer, you are going to issue these forms. Until what deadlines you are going to issue these forms is given somewhere here, yes. So when you're going to issue, if it's more than 600, is up to 600, like whatever is the limits if applicable, then you have to check the amount which you are going to uh, pay, because being an employer, whatever amount you're going to pay, you need to check. If it's more than 600, you have to uh, just a minute, guys. Yeah, sorry, mortgage interest is the person who is going to receive, the bank is going to receive it. So if it's more than $600 during the year, they are going to issue a 1098 to the payer. Okay, so those who are going to pay, the institution is going to issue them the form number. Until what date they have to file it, because see, this will be, I think I might have explained it in the class. Copy A, copy B, copy C. A will be filed with the IRS, B will be given to the receiver, and C will be kept on their own records. So copy A, which needs to be filed with the IRS, to be done on the 28th of Feb, and to recipient, copy B, I can use the word like this, copy B will be given to the to the person who is receiving, who is liable to receive this, till 31st of January. Mostly in every forms it's 31st Jan, except in 1099B it's 15th Feb. Okay, mostly everywhere it's 31st Jan. So this is also there on the IRS side, like general reporting, which form needs to be reported. You can go through on that if you don't have the book, but yes, if you have the books, it's already there. No need to mug up this. Okay, just focus your energy on whatever is needed. In part 2, specifically businesses, it's a very lengthy subject. So don't try to mug up and eat everything on the plate. Eat whatever is necessary, and which is going to be of worthy on your exam. So no one is going to ask the simple form numbers. Whatever form numbers are relevant, I will give you a list, but this small form numbers, simple form numbers, are not required. Okay. Yes, if you're going to report, if you're going to a business taxpayer reporting payment made to US person, must withhold at least 24% of withholding. Whenever you are going to pay anything to a US person, there should be a backup withholding of 24%. So this for the payment that is subject to 1099. 1099 means what? If you're an independent contractor, if you are a statutory non-employee, so they might not give you a W2, but they will ask, they will give you a 1099 MISC, miscellaneous, or NEC, non-employee compensation. So this person does not provide its tin number. That's the one other thing. So let's say even if you're on a W2 and you're not giving your social security number, also you're not giving your taxpayer identification number, straight away they will deduct 24% as a backup withholding. The IRS provides notification that the tin furnished by the payee is incorrect tin they have provided, or there has been a notified payee under reporting, they have under reported many deductions, oh sorry, under reported their further earnings, even if it's like some fraudulent activity if they are performing while giving the information to the employer, they can straight away deduct a 24% backup withholding. And there has been a pay certification failure, right? So when there is a certificate given for the backup withholding and it's not been generated or it's not been given, and mainly it will be rejected due to these three reasons only. So in that case, straight 24% you have to deduct as a backup withholding while paying the wages to the employee. Okay. Next is yes, gambling withholding is also the same percentage, 24%. And if you're going to have a gambling losses, so it will be like in case of a gambling losses, you are allowed to take only maximum up to gambling income, but that comes in your 1040 return. Here for part 2 you have to think from the provider's perspective. Whoever is going to issue the this 1099 forms, they need to, sorry, W2G form is issued by the provider, the vendors who are going to pay them the money, right? So 24% will be straight away applicable. Okay. But here the limits are there. No, again, no need to remember the limits. It based on different category of games which they have played, and the different limits are there for the games. For example, you can see if the winnings are going to exceed more than 5,000 for sweepstake, wagering, pools, or lotteries, and for example like for blackjack or similar table game, also it's the same. No, it will be at least $600 and 300 times of the amount wagered. Okay, so it will not apply unless you earn at least $600 and 300 times of the amount wagered. If the withholding applies, a taxpayer who does not provide an SSN TIN is subject to backup withholding. So if they do not provide any specific valid ID, they are liable to pay straight away 24% backup withholding. Else, ideally, the organization is going to, while issuing, the organization will withheld some federal income tax on that. Okay. All right. Apart from that, I'm not reading each and every line of this. Just go through it. It's just a specific, like what form number is there, what will be the criteria. Yes. So, what will be the amount, maximum amount for issuing this form? What will be the due date to file it with the IRS, due date to file it with the uh file to the recipient? Okay. So just read it once. You might have, like, those people appeared already for part 1, you might have came across these terminologies already in part 1, but you have to think from the issuer's perspective. The company is going to issue this form numbers. Okay, no need to just mug up the deadlines or form numbers. Okay, just do a quick reading, 1 or 2 times, just read it. Yes, and the retirement reporting 1099 hour and this. Okay, accounting period and method. I think this is the last page, 2 pages. Okay, great. So from here, we'll continue in tomorrow's session, the accounting period and method. And the next topic, we'll start with the new chapter, that is business taxation. I know, like, I'm not sure whether this time I'm teaching in a little bit slow paced manner or what, but my previous 2 or 3 years recordings were exactly of 7 days, 7 recordings. But yeah, that's fine. If you guys are able to understand that good enough, that's great, and it will be helpful for your exams. Then it's good. So yes, tomorrow we'll meet again for part 2, same time, and I'll upload the recordings, today's and yesterday's recording on the YouTube. Go through my prior recordings again, just repeat it twice or thrice before your exam, so all the concepts will be clear. Make sure to solve a lot of MCQs. Part 2, specifically part 2, it's like mostly the practical, so solve a lot of MCQs on part 2. Okay. Any question? I'm just pausing the recording. So thank you guys for watching the recordings.